Hey everybody, Bill here. Before we get into this episode, you may notice last time I teased a show about Sonic the Hedgehog in media, cartoons, comics, movies, etc. This is not it. And the reason is I went to put together that episode and saw I had nowhere near enough content to actually fill out the show properly. So decided to put that to the side, kind of postpone it a few weeks, get some more voices on the show to talk about that topic, and give you this little placeholder instead, a little something called the 3 questions. What are the 3 questions? Find out in about 10 seconds. Now, if you listen to this show with any regularity, you know I am all about stories. And stories come from interviews. And what I started doing a couple of months ago is I started asking my interviewees questions before the actual meat of the interview. Just warm-up questions, get us started, get us talking, comfortable on the microphone or phone or Zoom, whichever we were using, and I don't know, just kind of get things going, some warm-up questions. And then I thought, why don't I ask everybody the same 3 questions, and then when I get enough responses, throw them all into an episode and have a good laugh, or a good cry, or a good something. I really don't know. And that's what this episode is. This is a collection of a bunch of answers from a bunch of people, all around 3 very ridiculous video gaming questions. So the way this is going to work is each segment of this episode is for 1 question. I'm not going to make you listen to me ask the same question over and over and over again to these people. That would be laborious. So I'm going to state the question, and then my guests will answer said question in the following order. And again, that way I don't have to say the person's name 18 different times for every single question. That would get annoying as well. My first guest in the list will be George, also known as G to the Next Level on Twitch, YouTube, and everywhere else. You heard him on the Genesis episodes and last week's Sonic. My second guest is Ryan, also known as Games with Coffee. If you hadn't heard his full episode on Sonic in episode 10, it's amazing. He shares some really poignant personal stories about his relationship with Sonic. He's been here at other places as well. Number 3 is our new friend to the show, Alan Petrozzi. He debuted on last week's Sonic episode. Guest 4 is Greg Seward. He's been all over this podcast over the last few weeks, especially in the Bit Wars episode in the Genesis show, and episode 22, where he shares some of his time at EGM magazine. Really good listen there. Number 5 is Ian, also known as Teacher Bloke 85 on Twitter. He appeared on the Bit Wars and other episodes. Great friend of the show, really sweet guy, and a really fun conversationalist as well. And a brand new voice comes in at number 6, Adam of Retro Bygones Podcast. You'll be hearing him on some yet to be announced episodes in the future, so consider this his debut. Without further ado, the first question. You've been given a space the size of a standard 2-car garage. And in that space, you're going to build an arcade. Because of course you are. You're a gamer. It's what we would do. What are the first 3 arcade games you put in that garage? George starts us off.
Ooh, okay. Well, the first thing, this is going to be an interesting take, and there's a whole story and whatnot behind this too. The first arcade machine I would put in there is a Dance Dance Revolution machine.
Really? Okay.
If I had to pick one, it would be either DDR-A or Supernova 2 or Extreme. There are different songs on different versions of the cabinets. It'd probably be one of those 3. But that would be my first one.
Quick cut in before we get to number 2. You may be thinking, well, Bill, he has a story behind DDR. Why aren't we hearing it? I'm saving it. I'm holding on to it. Like like fine red wine in a cellar somewhere. I'm saving it for a special occasion and a special episode. So consider that a teaser for another episode coming up. Let's hear pick 2 and pick 3.
So the second one, I'm inclined, just because it's also one of my favorite games of all time. The funny thing is that I actually have an arcade 1-up version of this, but I would still one day love to have a real deal, and that's Golden Axe: The Revenge of Death Adder. That would probably be my number 2. I love that game so much.
That's a good choice. Wow. Nice. All right.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Yeah, it's an incredible beat 'em up, and it's an incredible beat 'em up that, unless if you know your ways with MAME, there isn't really, like, the only real official way to play it in the home is to either buy the arcade 1-up or to get the Sega Astro City Mini. Those are really the two, like, official ways that you can play those games, and neither one of those are really viable for a lot of people. It's a shame that Sega never brought that game home, and I still to this day don't understand why. But,
Man,
I mean, the game is awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's very cool. All right. Very good. And then number 3.
Man, number 3, though. I'm thinking either... Dang. Because I already have one beat 'em up, so I don't want to have another beat 'em up. So I'm thinking either Outrun 2, probably Outrun 2 SP, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, well, but I'm also thinking Time Crisis.
Oh, I'm telling you, you can only pick 3 right now.
You can only pick 3, though. That's why I'm like, nah, my heart's going with Outrun. My heart's going with Outrun. Gotta be Outrun.
Cool. Now, from what I understand of the original, like, Sega arcade machines, some of them were very elaborate. Was Outrun one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of the Outrun cabinets, I mean, most of the ones you see there, you can get a stand-up one, kind of like Crazy Taxi too, right?
Right.
Like, you could get the stand-up ones, but the sit-down ones were really where it's at. I think Outrun only had like just a basic plastic car that you would sit in, just like any other ones. It's not like Power Drift or whatnot, where it actually had the hydraulics, is that the right word? Where it actually had like the mechanics and whatnot, where the car would shift and sway around with you.
Yeah.
I don't think I know Virtua Racing had that. I don't think Outrun had that, if I'm not mistaken. So. But yeah, a lot of Sega's arcade cabinets are super elaborate, and I think that's why they're a little bit costly, and B, they're a lot harder to maintain. And I know, going back to Golden Axe: Revenge of Death Adder, if I'm not mistaken, I think the PCBs on that one were known to fail. So actually finding one that works is a rarity. There actually is one here in Houston in Bishop Cidercade. Like, when I went in there, I was like, oh my god, it's a real one. Because I actually hadn't seen a real one since college. Like, I went to an arcade, which is coincidentally the very first night I played DDR as well. I was in Florida when I was in college for a speech and debate tournament for a nationals tournament. And we went there the night before the awards ceremony, and they had a Golden Axe: Revenge of Death Adder arcade cabinet, and it was my first time ever seeing it. And I was like, oh, incredible.
That's super cool, man. That's a really cool, that's a cool kind of find, for sure. Yeah, man. So cool. So that's a nice, you started a really good arcade there. I'm happy with that. You did good.
First 3 games, eh? Okay. Turtles in Time.
Okay.
The Simpsons arcade game.
Okay.
And Street Fighter 2.
Ooh, now which version of Street Fighter 2?
Oh man, okay. Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Okay. Why those 3 games?
Well, okay, so Turtles in Time is one of my favorite beat 'em ups ever. Like, I enjoy playing it. I even did a podcast on it a long time ago with Moses, aka the Well-Read Mage, and this was well back in the beginning when MageCast first started. So we were part of a 4-man crew, each of us representing one turtle, and we just had a chat about Turtles in Time. And my personal favorite turtle, it used to be Michelangelo growing up, but now I identify much more with Raphael.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And so the Simpsons game, just because it's so much fun, it's it's slapstick humor, and you just can't get enough. I used to play this all the time at the arcades because I used to work in an amusement park, actually, a long time ago, like back in my university years. And sometimes when I was able to go take breaks, I'd head into the arcade, and one of the first games that were available was the Simpsons arcade game. So I started playing that a little bit during my breaks. I mean, the stint was only for about 2 months, I was working into the fall season and just working mostly in the evenings and sometimes in the afternoons too, but mostly the weekends, right? Weekend evenings and afternoons. And anytime I had a break, I'd just pop into the arcade, play a round or two of the Simpsons arcade, and then just head back to work.
Very nice. That's not a bad way to spend a lunch break. Very cool. And then why Street Fighter 2?
Because Street Fighter 2. Why not?
Right? You need some sort of competitive fighting game in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody and their mother knows that Street Fighter 2 is the definitive. Heck, you did an episode on Street Fighter 2, if I recall correctly, right? It was a really, really good episode. I think I remember you guys talking about that.
It's definitely come up in other episodes. I haven't done anything dedicated to it yet. That's probably a coming soon for sure.
Or actually, now that I think about it, it's probably when you were talking about arcade cabinets in general.
Oh yeah,
yes. That was the one. And I don't remember who it was. I want to say it was Joey that you guys were talking about it. It might have been Joey, but because Joey's awesome. You tell your friend Joey that. But yeah, I remember talking about it, and it reminds me when I was a kid myself. I used to go to there was a grocery store where I used to live. It's like way back when. It was kind of like a hard period for my parents. Long story short, there was a stock market crash that happened in 1990 or so, 1991 or something like that. And my parents fell on hard times. We had to go and bunk at my aunt's for about a year and a half until my parents could get back on their feet. Wow. And where I used to live there was a grocery store that, oddly enough, had a Street Fighter 2 cabinet. And every time I would go to the grocery store with my parents, they would just drop us off, give us a couple quarters. I would just be playing Street Fighter.
That's cool.
I was 5, almost 6 years old.
Wow.
During the time, and just playing Street Fighter. And I'm like, I remember that. And when you mentioned arcade games, the first one that came into my mind was Street Fighter 2.
That's awesome. That's a cool memory, man. It's kind of cool how some things get us through hard times, and it sounds like Street Fighter might have been one of those things that helped out during that.
Yeah, a little bit of that, a little bit. Mainly Super Mario Bros. 3 was my very first video game, so
sure.
that really helped me out a lot.
I would say a good classic to have, a good couple classics would be like original Donkey Kong and Mario Bros. Right?
Interesting. Okay.
To get that little light gun, kick in, maybe some Time Splitters, maybe 3.
Ooh, that's a good one. Very nice.
Any Marvel game, like Marvel vs. Capcom that they released in arcades, give me that, absolutely. And Outrun, for sure.
Outrun. That's a good one. You're not the only person who said Outrun. Do you mean now the sit-down cabinet?
Oh, yeah. You got it. Yeah. That's the whole aesthetic. You can't have it without it. And of course, one motorcycle one, and I would suggest Hang On.
Yeah, beautiful.
So stay in the Sega range there.
Yeah, and Sega, of course, back in those days, especially in the early arcade days, those were... Man, everything was Sega. It was all about Afterburner and Outrun and Hang On. Good picks.
I would have to go with Outrun, hands down. One of my favorite games of all time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the first one. And I'd have to say Miss Pac-Man.
Interesting. Okay, why Miss Pac-Man?
Miss Pac-Man is just one of those, I've been gaming since the late 70s, and, from the standpoint of arcades, I was definitely sort of a mid-80s to early 90s guy. I didn't spend a lot of time in arcades when I was a little kid, because there weren't a lot of them around here, and I think the ones that were around in the early 80s, anyone who remembers those, they were pretty seedy places, there was always a big deal about, there were always drugs and stuff being sold out of the back of arcades and stuff like that. Parents didn't like arcades, so my parents didn't like arcades, so I didn't go to many of them. But so sort of for the really classic stuff like Pac-Man and Centipede and Miss Pac-Man and stuff like that, I either played arcade ports on like the Atari 2600 or the ColecoVision, or I sort of came to appreciate them later in life. And Miss Pac-Man is just a game that like Pac-Man's great, but Miss Pac-Man is just like this perfect evolution of one of the the key games of all time, and I have this special love for it. I'm not particularly great at it, but I'm always happy to sit down and just play around in Miss Pac-Man.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, there's a timeless simplicity to it, but
Yeah.
a lot of it's simplistic, easy to learn, but hard to master. It's kind of that classic kind of cliche almost. It's a good pick. With Outrun, is it the stand up cabinet, or was there a sit down?
There was a sit down, and that is, I mean, that would fit in my garage, sure. Yeah, it's funny. The first 1-Up arcade that I actually pulled the trigger on, I came close to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but the first one I pulled the trigger on was actually the Outrun that they released.
Nice.
And my love of that is, I mean, I grew up in a racing family. My dad and my uncle both raced stock cars around here. My uncle's in the Canadian Hall of Fame, actually, for racing.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was kind of that's my family. I'm a big racing fan, and I come from a racing family. So I always sort of gravitated towards racing games. And in the mid-'80s, I mean, in my opinion, there was no better racing game in the arcade than Outrun. And I remember we used to take summer trips down to Old Orchard Beach in Maine or New Hampshire. I can't remember which state it's in. And Old Orchard Beach had this gorgeous, gigantic open-air arcade that my brother and I always look forward to whenever we went on these summer vacations with our dad, because he would just give us, I don't know how much money, probably $10 or something, and just let us loose in the arcade. And they had a big deluxe sit-down Outrun machine that I spent most of my money on every time. So, yeah, just absolutely adored it.
It's a great. Whenever I see that in a retro arcade, I always take at least a couple turns on Outrun. Always.
Oh, yeah.
It's an easy dollar spent on Outrun. Good picks. I love it.
I was listening to your episode with Sin Spaces, and I loved his answer to that.
Yeah.
Ooh, arcade cabinets. I would have to have Clacks in there. I always loved Tetris, but Clacks was one that I always played with my mum.
Okay, Clacks.
So it's got to be Clacks. Aside from that, I think there's got to be some kind of side-scrolling beat-em-up. Couldn't decide between Double Dragon or Turtles in Time, both classic games. I know my girlfriend's a fan of Double Dragon, so probably that one.
Okay, that'll work.
And, now you're asking. It'd have to be a one-on-one fighter. It's not my genre, really, but probably something like Mortal Kombat.
Okay, which Mortal Kombat?
3.
3? Really? 3? Interesting. Most people will go 2.
A lot of people love 2. I only ever rented Mortal Kombat 2, but I do own a copy of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 on SNES. And my best friend and I played that all the time. And so it'd probably be Mortal Kombat 3 for me, which is, I know, against the grain, but...
No, that's interesting. Very cool. Awesome, man. Well, those are 3 good picks. I like Clacks as your first one. That was funny. That's your immediate number 1. Boom. Right there.
I love Clacks.
It's a good one.
Star Castle.
Star Castle. I don't know. I don't even think I know that one.
You got to look it up. It's a vector graphics screen, and it's similar in scope to something like think Asteroids meets Space War.
Okay.
There's an alien ship inside of a shield, and you have to fly around it, destroy the shield, and basically think. Matter of fact, Howard Scott Warshaw called Space Castle his primary influence for Yar's Revenge. Think of it like 3D, like rather than the alien being on the side of the screen, he's in the middle of the screen. Very similar aspects to Yar's Revenge.
Okay.
All right. Number
cool.
2, gotta be Galaga. And most people call it Galaga, but I don't know why. I've always just had this aversion to calling it Galaga. I call it Galaga. But I've always been a big fan of that. It was one of the first games I had in the Atari 7800, and it's always one that I go to in the arcades. And then I want something that I can have like 4 people with.
Okay.
So it's going to be one of the 4 of the main beat 'em ups, whether it was X-Men or Turtles or
Right.
Simpsons. And you know what? I love the Simpsons, so I'm going to say that's going to be my number 3.
Simpsons is good. They're all pretty pick up and play, but just the cartooniness and the silliness of the Simpsons, plus its recognizable imagery. I do think that's like an accessible one. People may not know the X-Men, like, oh, I don't know who Gambit is.
And it's not super hard, and the it's got that like cartooniness that I lose with some of the other ones. Like X-Men's really cool because I love X-Men, but The Simpsons is just something I've watched ever since I was a kid. It just resonates with me.
No, that's cool, man. I think it's a really good pick. I like your mix too. If you have some really old games and some a game that'd be considered retro, I guess these days, The Simpsons, but still approachable enough for new players and modern day. I think those are 3 excellent picks.
Plus, my kids love it.
There you go, and that's it. And that'll be the first your first customers, I'm sure. So that's really all that matters in the end, anyway. Question number 2. You have the ability to create a brand new game in your favorite franchise. However, in order to do so, you must completely destroy an entire other franchise. And when I say destroy, I mean dust it from existence like Thanos. It is gone. So bring a game into life, but to do so, you sacrifice an entire franchise. 2 rules to this. Rule number 1, both franchises must have at least 3 games in it. So you could not pick The Last of Us, for example. Last of Us 1, Last of Us 2, and the DLC doesn't count. There's not enough games in the franchise, cannot be included. So established franchises only. And then rule number 2, everybody knows you did it. Everybody knows you killed franchise ABC. They know your Twitter account. They know your social media. You're on the news. So-and-so destroyed Kingdom Hearts. Oh boy, life is not going to be good for Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. At this point, George was not involved. He only got asked the first question. So it's going to be Ryan, Games with Coffee, Alan, Greg, Ian, and then finally Adam. Let's see what they had to say.
Well, you're evil, you know that?
It's a conversation starter. It's a warm-up.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's a really good question. Okay. This is extremely hard because the first thing that would have came to my mind was Metroid. Brand new Metroid game, and and because Metroid Dread came out, that doesn't count anymore. So, so nope, that's not going to happen. Oh my gosh, this is going to take some thinking because I got to go through my entire catalog of games in my head that I would need a good sequel to it, and oh geez, okay. All right, let's think about it. Okay, in terms of the fan base, I'd probably destroy. I'd say the Smash community.
Wow! Oh, wow! You can't do that. They all know who you are. They know your Twitter account. They don't know where you live. Even in my fantasy joke thing, I can't be that gross. But like, they know. Wow, the Smash Brothers, huh?
No, okay, maybe that's a little too salty. That's a little too salty.
I didn't say the community. I said you have to actually dust the games. The community still exists. They're still there. One minute they're playing Smash Brothers, the next minute it's gone. Like just literally dusting out of their N64s.
Oh man. Okay. Then if I really had to be serious and dust one franchise, then it would definitely be The Last of Us because I cannot stand that franchise for the life of me.
Okay. Technically, that's not on the table because there's not enough entries.
Oh,
but
there's not enough entries.
That's okay. I will accept it though. I will accept it for sake of time. That's okay.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
That's okay. That's okay. I will accept it for sake of time. That's fine.
Okay, but in terms of an actual legit sequel for something,
and it's a good sequel. This is like, your ideal sequel to a franchise?
Oh God, I'm just gonna go with the obvious one and just pick Sonic the Hedgehog. God knows we need a good Sonic game right now.
Cool. Yeah, I'm surprised it took that long.
Because I didn't want to go with the obvious.
I gotcha.
actually really wanted to think about this, but like I mean, because of the conversation we're having and like the last couple of weeks with the dismal release. Well, I'd say it's dismal, but I mean it's kind of more mediocre in a sense. The release of Sonic Colors Ultimate. I didn't want to go with the obvious choice, but really, I have to go with the obvious choice at this point. Yes, a Sonic sequel, a good Sonic sequel, and I mean, that might be something we can talk about today for sure.
Yeah.
With the upcoming Sonic 2022 release, codenamed Sonic Rangers.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely chat about that for sure. So, good choices for sure.
So a sequel to a long-running, or a sequel to a game, the franchise as well, right?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Sure. I'll raise up the Zelda franchise even more if I destroy the Uncharted one.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I went there. I did that.
You know what? I don't hate that. That doesn't upset me in the slightest. I would absolutely.
That's what I thought. I'm like, that has to be one of the least upsetting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it will
would,
upset people. Do not get me wrong.
Of course.
But it's the right amount of people.
Not gonna lie, I had an interview just before this. He actually mentioned as the one he would destroy was Smash Brothers, and I'm like, are you insane? Like, how could you do that? They know you did it. The ravenous fan base, they'd be at your doorstep.
And you just gave them immense hope with Sora, and watched them lose it.
They would lose their mind. Fine at long last. Oh man, I like that a lot. Actually, I would absolutely trade every Uncharted game for a new Zelda game, and that's not even
for a guaranteed not even a divisive entry. I would take
good
that for sure.
No, it's guaranteed good. Yeah, for sure. Awesome, man. Would it be a 2D or a 3D?
It'd be 3D.
Yeah, you stick with the 3D open world style.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, I think Nintendo can do 2D on themselves pretty easily if they wanted to. I'm not too worried about its staying power. 3D has enough divisiveness, as seen with even Breath of the Wild, that I would like a certified non-divisive version.
Excellent. I totally dig that for sure. Good picks. I like that. And the Uncharted series is good, but I don't know. It is not unnecessary. It is slightly unnecessary. As much as I enjoy those games, they've never been the type of game I want to play ever again.
They're popcorn. They're popcorn games. They're great for exactly as if you were watching Indiana Jones. But, iconic, important, fun, of course. But necessary?
I actually really
Subjective.
agree with that. No, I really agree with that pick. I like those games. But you know what? I also think those games also fostered a lot of bad habits in games as well.
I do like their I don't want to say excuse, but their conceit of him getting shot was because his luck ran out. I'm like, that's perfect. That does help with that ludonarrative dissonance between a failure of a game and why is he back 2 seconds later kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, no, that does kind of make sense. The one thing I think for Uncharted is make off a little on a tangent, but that's what we do in the show is tangents. I always think with Uncharted, traversing, climbing, after Breath of the Wild, I can't go back to Uncharted climbing. I can't go back to a world where I can't grab on a rock because the game
neither could Ubisoft.
Yeah, I know.
I tried to play through the trilogy of Tooth and Brotherhood and Revelation. I'm like, oh, that's right. You have to plan or know where to climb, and it's okay.
I just, after Breath of the Wild and the joy and freedom of just climbing, unless it makes sense that you can't too steep or whatever else it is. Mm-hmm. Oh man, we'll talk about Breath of the Wild. I'm curious of your take on it.
Sure.
Later on, maybe after the second, third question. But I do like your answer. Excellent.
I would really love to create a new great Sonic game.
Ooh, okay.
I know that's probably weird because that's been an active franchise for 30 years now, but it's
okay.
It's been so up and down that I would love to see a new modern, Sonic Mania was fantastic,
right?
But a more modernized Sonic that actually plays well, which seems to not happen very often. What franchise would I destroy? Killer Instinct.
Ooh, okay. Are there more than are there 3 Killer Instincts?
Yes,
remember.
I think so,
There
right? Because
are.
there was KI 1 and 2 back in the
Yeah.
day, and then Microsoft released
That's
the new
right.
Killer Instinct.
Okay, I think that's a great pick.
Yeah.
We don't. It's a redundant series. I always, when I answer this question in my head, I think what series is redundant that we don't need. I don't think there's a lot of KI fans out there who'd really be extremely salty.
Right.
That's a good pick. I like that. Very good. Okay.
I think anyone that knows me know I would look for Shadow Hearts 4.
Okay.
I adore the Shadow Hearts series, and I think it's a crying shame that it lived and died on the PlayStation 2.
Wow, it's an interesting one. I'm not even that familiar with it. That's pretty interesting.
If you want to listen to one of the MageCast episodes that myself and a friend featured on, we talked about that for a couple of hours.
Cool. Okay. Very good. Yeah, I didn't even. Yeah, that's probably why I didn't check it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's no. I'm not familiar with the game. I'll have to listen to
it's,
it. Okay.
How can I describe it? Lovecraftian horror RPG with crazy.
Okay. I'm into all that. All those words in conjunction are good.
There you go.
I'm into that. So what's now? But what do you destroy?
That's the hard one. I would probably have to accept the wrath of the fan base for, and I hate to say it because I'm a big fan, I would probably have to get rid of something like Tomb Raider.
Ooh, Tomb Raider. Interesting. Okay.
I think we've done everything we can do with the current crop of Tomb Raider games, at least. The recent trilogy have been fantastic. But I think that's a series that needs another shot in the arm. I think that's a series that, from the first 5 games, it then needed the shot in the arm that was... we won't count Angel of Darkness, but Tomb Raider, was it called Legend or Legacy? I can't remember which one it was.
I think it was
now.
Legacy. I don't remember offhand.
Yeah, and then we had the few games there, that one, the Anniversary, Underworld, and then it got a bit samey again. Another shot in the arm with Tomb Raider, Rise, Shadow, and I think it's ready for another shot in the arm.
That's, I think, a very interesting pick. Yeah, I like that. I actually like that one. It also, there's games that have done it as well.
Yeah.
Like the Uncharted series kind of has done that as well. So it's a bit redundant. I always go for redundant series with that question in my brain.
Oh boy. My favorite game of all time is Maniac Mansion Day of the Tentacle. And I
very
always
nice.
thought they could expand on that story a little bit and get a little bit more absurd with it. So that's what I would go for, is Maniac Mansion Day of the Tentacle.
Okay. Now, does the Maniac Mansion series actually have a third? It's like a third
I see
remember?
what you're saying.
Yeah, it's got to have 3 games in it already.
Wow. That is a really tough question.
Evil laugh. And insert evil laugh here. Well, here,
man.
what I usually do for these, to give you a little more time, because it is a hard question, I'll give you mine. The one I would do is I would create a Deus Ex. I would create a new Deus Ex from the ashes.
Oh, and then you'd kill Human Revolution, and I love that.
No? Well, no. You're keeping the entire old franchise. You're dusting a completely different one.
Oh. Okay.
Yes. So Deus Ex I would raise up. Human Revolution's fine. I mean, it's it's not Deus Ex, which is, of course, one of the greatest games ever made.
I haven't played it in so long that...
It's fine. It's more shooter than anything else, but it still kind of has a little bit of an immersive sim to it. Excuse me. So I would bring in Deus Ex, make a new Deus Ex. I'd actually have the team, Arcane Studios, do it. The team that did Prey and Dishonored. I want them to do it.
Yep.
Because they'd be amazing at it. And I would destroy the entire Battlefield series. Just destroy Battlefield. Because, I don't think it's big enough a player base for that to get really... A blowback would be bad. And you already have a Call of Duty, so why would we don't really need... How many military shooters do we really need anyway? So, those are mine. So, what do you think?
All right. So, in that ilk, Mass Effect. You've got 1, 2, and 3, which I think are great games.
Yep.
And then the most recent one was just... It was good, but it had some glitches. And then the the game franchise I would obliterate is very similar to yours. I would gladly say goodbye to all the Call of Duty games.
Wow. Now listen,
nope. There's
Okay.
not a doubt in my mind. I've played enough.
Yeah.
I've been in the online gaming world. It's a bad place.
Is it because it's just a bad place with just like really toxic, or
It's pretty toxic. And the
Yeah.
other thing is too, there is a sharp difficulty of just picking it up and then getting used to getting your butt kicked all the time. And that's the big thing for me. And then Call of Duty Modern Warfare is one of 2 games in my entire life that ever made me throw up.
wow.
Yes, and that was because my buddy and I were playing it on a 125-inch screen. He had a projector set up.
Okay.
And imagine the characters are as tall as you are, and you're spinning around. It was bad. It was bad.
That's tough.
Nobody wants to talk about that, but
Well, you're gonna have some fans after you because they know who you are. So if you're willing to weather that storm, man, I have no stake in it. I've played, I think, a couple of Call of Duty games in my life. I think I've finished a couple of them. I have no attachment to the series. I don't play online nearly at all, so I don't care. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. But there is a fan base out there that can be pretty ravenous. Now, if question 3 sounds a little familiar to you, it's because I kinda stole it. Well, I didn't steal it. I adapted it. That's what I did. I didn't just take it wholesale and put it in my show. I kind of stole it from another podcast. The show I stole it from is Song versus Song. If you remember that guy with the glasses back in the old YouTube days, Todd in the Shadows, he was the music reviewer. He still does it, by the way. Like, check out Todd in the Shadows. He's still doing really good work, which is amazing, 10 or so years after the fact. He does a podcast called Song versus Song, and they do a similar bit where they have like 3 questions at the end of their show. And this is basically one of the questions that I have adapted for video games. So, credit given to Song versus Song. Question number 3. William Shatner. Actor, musician, complainer on Twitter, literal spaceman, 85-year-old rock star at this point. He has decided to take up voice acting in video games. What game would you like to hear William Shatner voiceover, either past or present? And if it's an old game, it's a remaster with him working in the lead. Let's hear about our friends' picks once again in order. Ryan first, then Alan, Greg, then Ian, and then finally Adam. Let's hear what they had to say.
Gotta remember that William Shatner, he is legendary in Star Trek. Right. But I think if we were going to go through the Star Trek kind of deal here, I think somewhere in the realms of science fiction would be a really good fit for him. Now,
agreed.
My first guess was my first instinct would be to go to Halo. I think it would be a perfect stand-in for a voice actor in Halo. But I haven't played enough of the Halo series to know like any prominent characters in that. But I just know in the franchise itself that he would be a good fit for that one. Okay. Possibly StarCraft as well too. If there's voice acting for StarCraft, I don't know. I've never really played it.
I don't know.
There's a lot of sci-fi games I haven't really played per se, but every time I think of William Shatner, it's always Star Trek, right? So of course he would have to be a person to kind of go into sci-fi or sci-fi type games. Honestly, because I'm on such a Metroid I've just been in such a in a state of Metroidness right now. I finished Dread like on Monday, and I am blown away. I have not stopped thinking about it. I wrote a first impressions post on the Pixels about it, and right now Dread is my game of the year. So I'm gonna say if there's seriously, it is my game of the year, like hands down. I don't think there's any other game that made me think this deeply about than Dread did. So if there was any sort of speaking roles in, you know what, Commander Alan Malkovich in Metroid Other M, the
in the much maligned
stepchild,
in the much maligned Other M, I've never played Other M, so I can't speak to it, but I can see him as I don't know if it's like an AI or something. I think sci-fi too. I'm always like, I want a Shat Shepard, you know?
Yeah.
I do Shat Shep in Mass Effect. I'd be down for that.
You know what? That was also my second thought too. I'm like, I don't know if he would fit that because not because of mainly because of his age. Like Shepard is more of a younger character.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. I'd still give him a shot.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I think of him more as a more mature, older gentleman, like a commanding officer, CEO. So the first thought that came to my mind was Adam, of course.
Oh, sure.
Because in Other M, because I never played the game, but I did watch the cutscenes for that one. So he's this very stoic, very uptight and gruff CEO, and I mean, Shatter would be a really good fit for that kind of role.
A guy like that could be pretty charismatic if he wanted to be. Mm-hmm. Like I could see him though in like the Outer Worlds, for instance, as a character.
Huh. Okay. I haven't played Outer Worlds. I own it. I have not played it yet.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
Okay.
I think he would make sense as like a quest giver of some kind for sure.
Okay, I like that.
Tongue-in-cheek references to what he's done. For sure.
Sure. Cool. All right. Awesome. Quest giver in Outer Wilds. I'm into that. Very good.
Trying to think of like I don't know. I think he would be a great actor for. I'm trying to think of like probably a Leisure Suit Larry game of some kind.
Wow, there you go. Okay, all right, I can
that's
see
the
that.
best I can come up with. All I'm thinking is it has to be some kind of like comedy based, adventure game. I think he'd be good at.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I like that actually, and there's a lot of dialogue, so there's a lot for him to do. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. You could combine the two questions. You could create a Leisure Suit Larry and have him. No, just kidding. We probably don't want to do that.
No,
but cool. All right, awesome, very good. I those answers were excellent.
I like that question. I'm just thinking of old games that weren't voiced, and if we could get him to play a kind of iconic character from back in the day, maybe something from the old point-and-click adventures. I know the cast of Monkey Island in the remakes have done a fantastic job with those, but I would have loved to have heard Shatner as LeChuck.
From is that from Monkey Island? I'm not familiar with the
villain
series.
from The Secret of Monkey Island, the ghost pirate LeChuck.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it, but I'm gonna take it. That sounds cool. I'm not Monkey Island, the series I just completely bypassed for some weird reason in my life.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I do enjoy. I just did that MageCast episode with Red on
Maniac Mansion,
Maniac Mansion, and Monkey Island's just a game the whole series just flew by me. So
it's
cool.
Well worth it, especially if you like Maniac Mansion and Day of the Tentacle.
Oh yeah, totally. I hear nothing but good things.
He would be a perfect character in Space Venture, the new, the highly delayed Space Quest series kind of. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like a spiritual sequel, but I think William Shatner would actually do really good comedic roles. He could be the serious guy that is secretly funny, kind of like Adam West is in Family Guy.
Right. Yeah, I could actually really see that. Almost kind of sort of playing himself.
Yeah.
No, that actually makes a lot of sense. I like that. That's a good,
he'll have to stick with the absurdity because he's not a good serious actor at all.
No, not really. No.
And he fit in the 80s scheme of things.
Yeah.
Now in the 90s and the 2000s, he's not Star Trek regal like Star Trek is now. He's more Star Trek kind of silly.
I will stand behind Has Been, though, as a record. His album Has Been. It's actually really good. It's actually a very good album. It's a little silly, but it's actually got some really interesting stuff in there and some really honest music.
I think
in there.
that's
It's
the
good.
point, though. Was he's not a good singer, and he's just a fun guy.
Yeah, but there's stuff in Has Been the album, not to get off too far afield. Has Been the album has a lot of songs of him regretting the mistakes he's made in his life and realizing that he is, is he a has-been or is he not? He does like a little spoken word poetry about finding his wife dead in the pool. Like there's actually real depth to it. And there's some silly, stupid stuff, William Shatner stuff, but there's actually depth and feeling in there, which I think is actually very interesting. And, at that time, 70-something-year-old, rock star, basically, telling you all the things they're telling you
material for tomorrow.
It's actually pretty good. Some of the stuff again is silly, but it's actually a pretty decent record. It was produced by Ben Folds, so Ben Folds does all the music. So. Thank you so much to all of my guests who put up with me literally foisting 3 random questions on them. Not trying to put you off balance, just trying to lead you into the conversation and into the interview, and for all being really good sports about it. Some of those questions aren't easy to just think up off the top of your head, but everyone did an amazing job with it. And that was fun. Oh, and if you're planning on being interviewed for this show again, don't think you're going to get the same 3 questions. These questions are now officially retired. And I have an interview to conduct in 2 days, so I better come up with 3 more. I will. I think I will. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of A Gamer Looks at 40. I am not in the habit of begging for things, but I'll do a bit of groveling for an iTunes review. I'm not gonna lie. I may do a little weeping. Just gonna say I may embarrass myself for that. If you haven't done so already, and if you so feel inclined, taking a few minutes to write a review on iTunes/Apple Podcast would be wonderfully appreciated. It's one of the biggest things you can do to support this show. Outside of course, just telling a friend, posting on Facebook, posting on Twitter, send it on out there. I have a Facebook group now, a Facebook page. And it's got like 10 likes from kind family members. Facebook's not a place I go to anymore, but if you do go there, hey, give the page a like just to be supportive of the show. And please, tell friends, spread the word. More people equals more stories equals more questions. Until next time, be kind to yourselves and each other.